Hey guys, we're gonna rate production and mixing advice from popular YouTube channels. Last time we did this, some channels got a thumbs up for their accurate and informative content, while others were a bit misleading. We're not doing this to expose anybody or to peel down other people's content. We're doing it to show that it's important to be critical about the information we consume on the internet. And this is especially true for content on music production. Hopefully, we're gonna find some great advice today. We're gonna look at 3 different pieces of content, which is from mastering.com and Virtual Riot. First up, we've got mastering.com and some advice on how to use a clipper in mixing.
So I've got 10 tips for you in this video, and the first tip is clipping and making sure you're using your clipper properly when it comes to mastering. So if you're not familiar with what clipping is, then it's effectively a different way of controlling the transients of the audio. And unlike compression or limiting, which will just turn down the peaks when they trigger the limiter or the compressor and then bring the volume back up, what a clipper does is it actually shaves off the top of the transient and just cuts it off. And that might sound really drastic, that might sound really aggressive, but often it's actually a more transparent way of cutting off some of those transients, because you're
It is a very aggressive way of dealing with dynamics. It's pretty much the most aggressive way there is. So this absolutely can be too drastic. But he's right that at the same time, clipping can often be the most transparent dynamic tool when it's used right.
getting the very top of the transient, and often we can't actually hear that, and it might only be a few samples. And then we're clipping it off. And that means then if we add a limiter afterwards, we've got less peaks going in and we've brought down that peak level by maybe half a decibel or a decibel. And that's really the goal here. If we want to get a really loud master that's transparent and no distortion, then it's about just shaving off half a dB, a third of a dB, maybe 1 dB with lots of different tools in sequence, rather than just throwing on one limiter and doing 2 or 3 dB of gain reduction.
Totally agree. This is exactly the mindset you want to have in mixing and mastering. You want to manage peaks along the way so that when things hit the limiter, they don't unnecessarily trigger the limiter to turn down the signal.
So let me just show you. So here we've got a clipper, and this is kind of subtle settings. This is what I actually ended up using on the final master, is a bit of soft clipping. And
That's not actually true. This is not soft clipping, this is hard clipping. Just a minor correction here. If you want to use soft clipping in standard clip, you have to turn up this soft clip slider. It's a bit weird how that works in this plugin, but you can see that that's actually how it works on this infograph.
So you can see I've adjusted the threshold here, so it's just catching some of these peaks, and it's not super audible. All that we're hearing when I engage the plugin is that the perceived loudness is coming up a bit, because this is now boosting the output slightly. It's got kind of an auto gain feature that's boosting the output slightly because we created more headroom.
That's not actually true as well. There is an assistant feature in the plugin, but there's no auto gain function. So right now the output gain is the same as before. And also the perceived loudness is not getting increased by the clipping itself. It would be true that if the output level was actually increased, you could say the perceived loudness would be higher, but that didn't happen. And clipping doesn't increase the perceived loudness by itself. All it's doing is manipulating the dynamics. What I do think he did well here is his use of the clipper. He's only taken out that very top part of the signal, and this is exactly how you want to use a clipper. It's a super transparent adjustment in itself, but it does so much to lighten the load on the limiter, right? Now these peaks will not come in and trigger the limiter unnecessarily.
And we've gained a difference of 1.5 decibels of headroom without really changing how this sounds at all. And if you've really honed in, you might be able to hear a little bit on those peaks, something happening, but it's so transient in nature that the end listener isn't going to hear that. We're not introducing distortion or anything like that, but we've bought ourselves 1.5 decibels of headroom. That means we can turn up the whole track 1.5 decibels. So in summary, clipping is an essential technique for getting loud masters without distortion, even though that might seem counterintuitive. Soft clipping is good if you want a kind of more rounded off, saturated sound, whereas hard clipping is off.
Good thing he pointed out that soft clipping actually has a saturation aspect to it as well. I like that he made a comment about that.
And a little bit more transparent, and we're just going to catch those peaks. Honestly, either can work. If I want a more transparent sound, generally I'll go for hard clipping. If I want a more saturated sound and I want to bring down the threshold a little bit to actually introduce some new harmonic content, then I'll use soft clipping. But if you literally just buy a standard clip and just load it up with the default settings, and all you do is bring down this clip control until you start to see that you're catching some of these peaks, That's all you have to do. It's going to make a huge difference.
Yeah, good stuff. I do very much agree with his mixing philosophy and approach here, and I think his use of the clipper was spot on as well. So, mastering.com, I would give this content a 9 out of 10. Next up, we have a bonus clip also from mastering.com, and this is a short video.
Best mixing tip for beginners.
Aside from focusing on learning how to get a very good volume balance first, I would
Good tip already.
say when it comes to using the tools like EQ and compression, I would say to abuse these tools, even things like reverb, distortion. The reason I say abuse these tools
I've said this in multiple of my videos before. You have to be willing to explore to learn the function of the tools. That's the only way you can learn in music.
is because you want to understand the full spectrum of limits within those parameters. So like, for example, take your ratio and crank it up all the way on a compressor, and then take the release and turn it all the way up, and then do the opposite with the attack, turn it all the way down. And by exploring those limits and abusing them, like putting way too much of stuff on something, you're going to start to develop your taste for where things sit and associate the parameters with your taste. And I think that's really important.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, that's so good. Very well explained, and I very much agree with his stance on this topic. Such a valuable tip, 10 out of 10 easy. Next up, we have Virtual Riot, who is mixing a track from scratch.
And then one final thing I like to do at the end often is this sidechain group that everything's running through. That's not kick or snare. I might have a little multiband compressor on here, but I prefer using the FabFilter Pro MB. And then I'll have one band here for the sub that has a very hard knee. And then this is just to level the sub so that between all these different bass sounds, it somewhat stays at the same level. As you can see, the sub in the heavy bit is a lot stronger than the sub in the melodic bit, so this is kind of evening that out. If overall that leads to too much reduction in sub volume, we can just boost the gain of it overall a bit.
So this is not a bad mixing decision at all. This gets the job done for the subs, but I would probably prefer to adjust the level of the individual channels instead. Unless this is done for glue, which he's not explaining, you'd probably get a sharper, more defined low end by leveling these sounds individually. And you'd also avoid the potential artifacts of the compression.
And then we can do something similar up here for the high bands, maybe one that is from 7,000 to all the way up, and one that's sort of a little sitting in this harsh range that I don't like between, say, 1.5 and 7. And then one down here for the low mids-ish area. And I don't want these to be compressing the entire time. I'm gonna set the threshold all the way to 0. So they're not reacting yet. And then I'm bringing this down until I see these bands reacting sometimes to like certain peak loudness moments. Now it's almost just leaving that melodic synth completely alone.
So he's using multiband compression to control certain frequencies on his mix group, but he never tells us what he's trying to achieve. Is he just trying to control the dynamics? Does he want to make it more snappy? Is he looking for glue? He never lets us know. And he also never shares his thoughts behind the decision making. He just explains what he's doing as he's doing it. For example, I'm curious about why he's using look ahead and why he wouldn't use a faster release time. Because with the current settings, he's getting a pretty sloppy compression compared to what he could achieve. And judging from his music, I think he'd probably want that faster compression because it's very fast-paced and aggressive, but alright, now he's moved on to master his track.
So for quote-unquote mastering, I really don't do a lot. I often just put on Ozone, current version Ozone 11 that I have here, and I usually only use an EQ, the multiband dynamics, and the maximizer, though the maximizer I don't really use. I turn it off, but I use the gain match. Let me show you what I mean. So right now I've just thrown this on, and what I've got going on here is some compression for the lows and the low mids, stronger compression for an even stronger compression for the very highs. The ratio for the subs really strong, the low mids is pretty fluffy, and then it gets stronger for the higher frequencies again. And if I play this back now, these lines are showing me that there's a lot of compression going on. That's actually too much. I don't want that much. So I'm gonna turn down the input gain. until these are just like slightly moving, like maybe down to -3, -4. And then off
-3, -4 is a good amount of reduction across the bands for a multiband on the master. I like to do something similar.
4. And then often to let through some more highs, because obviously with 7 to 1, this stuff up here gets quite compressed. I just like to use the parallel down here and just bring through the uncompressed signal a little bit. Slightly similar stuff for these high mids, maybe just 90%.
So for the multiband on the master, he is moving fast, right? He's going so fast over these settings and he's never really explaining anything about what he's trying to achieve. I love the technique of using parallel on the high band. That's a very high level technique. But if you're not already a very advanced music producer who has experience with multiband processing, compression settings, ratios and parallel processing, you're gaining nothing from this because you have no clue what he's doing or what he's trying to achieve with these settings. I can tell you that for me, when I use multiband compression on the master, I do it for different reasons all at the same time. I use it for glue, I use it to control the dynamics in different regions of the track, and then I use it to tonally shape the track. He's never really mentioning his reasoning behind these moves.
We can barely hear it there. It seems to mostly live in the sides. Maybe we can do something about that in here real quick, where I kind of want to do it in the serum patch.
Beautiful. So instead of trying to fix the issue he's having on the master, he's going back into the project and fixes it on the individual channel instead. Very good decision. We don't want to use the master to fix things in the mix.
Nice, that looks good. And then I used the maximizer to initially, first, let's just bring this up, make it loud. This is going to get a little loud now. Usually up to where I hit -2 RMS in ozone up here. And then I use the gain match and turn off the maximizer. So now what it does is it just boosts it by 8 decibels after the dynamics. And it actually doesn't limit it. It's going to clip.
Wait, what?
And turn off the maximizer. So now what it does is it just boosts it by 8 decibels after the dynamics. And it actually doesn't limit it. It's going to clip.
I don't get this. I don't get this. Isn't this just an ADB gain? What's with using the gain match?
So here is the before version. And then after mastering.
So what did he end up using as a final limiter? Did he just export the track without anything? Because that would just be like using a hard clipper. He kind of left that out, and that's a pretty important step. All right, let's give this man a score. So look, he's obviously crazy talented. The results don't lie. I have much respect for him, and he's working faster than I will ever be able to. But if you're consuming this content to learn and become better at producing and mixing, which is the point of his video, by the way, this is simply too fast-paced, and there's too little explaining going on for the vast majority of people to actually learn anything. Like I said, unless you are very experienced already and kind of know the underlying intention of what he's doing will just go right over your head. So people will try to copy what he's doing in their own projects, but will have no clue what they're doing because they didn't actually learn how to do it or the reasoning behind it. And this is the issue with 99% of content on the internet. For the score, he is getting a 5 out of 10. I think he showcased some good techniques and some good mixing principles, but the delivery of it is making it so that it really only helps a very small percentage of people, which is a shame. Alright, what do you think of the scores I gave in this video? Do you think it's fair? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.